Yeah, no, NBA Yao Ming was definitely he is not only an NBA All-Star player, but he is a global icon, right? He I think himself actually represents something bigger than just basketball. He represents, the sport, he represents the cultural exchange, and he's a good symbolic figure that, you know, and he's most importantly, he's just a fascinating human being. I had the opportunity to work with him very closely as his chief of staff for many years. And then after I left the CBA, we kind of advised each other as good friends. And he is someone just so uniquely special. And, no matter if you're meeting him for the first time or just a fan from the distance, you will like him, and his impact is felt everywhere.
We have a bit of a tradition on our show. Our show is about basketball culture globally. What makes the game so great? So take this question any way you want it. What is your first or favorite basketball memory?
Well, I have too many good basketball memories. I think it's hard to pick just one. But I have to say, one of those moments is when, as a kid, witness Yao Ming got drafted the first round in the first pick at NBA draft. How many? 23 years ago. I think that moment was still very, very special. No matter how long that has passed. I think that moment kind of changed how basketball was perceived on a global, kind of a stage, and also NBA was truly entering the age of globalization. Now, seeing how many international players are striving at an NBA, I think it all started. Well, it all started before even Yao got drafted, but I think that was a moment to reinforce the whole story.
My two co-hosts, they are huge Houston Rockets fans, and huge fans of Yao Ming. So, in honor of them, I got to ask you, just in terms of the time has passed on Yao Ming's legacy, can you kind of elaborate on that in terms of just his impact and how the Asian University Basketball League kind of ties into kind of furthering what Yao Ming really did within the NBA and globally as well?
Yeah, no, NBA Yao Ming was definitely he is not only a NBA All-Star player, but he is a global icon, right? I think himself actually represents something bigger than just basketball. He represents, the sport, he represents the cultural exchange, and he's a good symbolic figure that, to represent U.S.-China relations. And he's most importantly, he's just a fascinating human being. I had the opportunity to work with him very closely as his chief of staff for many years. And then after I left the CBA, we kind of advise each other as good friends. And he is someone just so uniquely special. And no matter if you're meeting him for the first time or just a fan from the distance, you will like him, and his impact is felt everywhere, right? So and to be honest, we decided to start AUBL also inspired by him. He is someone who's really a believer of how sports is a very important part of education. I think in the U.S. people take it for granted. That's because how college sports, high school sports is so big. It's already part of the culture. People take it, for granted. But actually, in many different parts of the world, especially in some countries in Asia, uh, 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 sport is still, regarded as not as important as education, or they were separated. So, it's Yao's biggest visions that sports should be returned back to education and played a very inseparable part. So I think that's what AUBL is about, to kind of help Asia to build a platform where the schools and institutions are the main characters. The student athletes are the protagonists, and we hope to build that platform to elevate the entire basketball ecosystem at every levels, but using the college sport as kind of the centerpiece. So that's kind of tied back into Yao's vision too. So that's why he's also a big supporter of the vision.
Can you give an overview to our audience? just about what is AUBL and just the overview of the league in terms of how it works and why international basketball fans should be paying attention to this league.
Yes, definitely. So AUBL stands for Asia University Basketball League. Is a new product. Unlike the NCAA basketball, March Madness has been around for decades. We are we're 1 year old. We're not even 1 year old. We're just starting. Our inaugural event is this August, August 18th to 24th in Hangzhou, China, featuring 12 the best Asia University teams. So to give your audience a little bit more background on how college basketball works in Asia, so it is popular, but I would say it's far behind, the level of popularity for pro basketball in Asia, because of lack of marketing, a lack of, I think, professional operations. In the U.S., in the market we're all very familiar with, I think college basketball is as important as pro basketball, as NBA, WNBA. Sometimes even this, if college basketball is more talked about every year, especially around March Madness time. I think people talk about college ball more than the pro basketball. So I think that's fascinating, right? And it's actually hard. It's very hard for people. When I talk to a lot of guys here, they know college basketball is huge in the States, but then when they heard, oh, it's actually sometimes bigger than pro basketball, they were all shocked, right? But we see the reason why, because it's such a centerpiece of player development, and now with all the NIL stuff, it's actually getting more, it's getting more interesting in many different ways, right? And we still don't know what the implications are, but I think it's just fascinating. Every day it makes to the national headlines. So on the other side, in Asia, people value education so much, so the universities are all so respected in the societies, and all the parents want their kids to succeed and like go to good colleges, and that's but in a fascinating way, those top institutions in Asia also have great basketball programs, and they all compete domestically in each of their country and regions, for the college championships. And that following is already there. It's been around for decades as well, and it's actually pretty massive if you just simply think about the scale of basketball fandom in Asia, overall. And so we think it's great. The foundation is already there, but it could need use a little bit more marketing. It could use a little bit more production, to make the culture more relevant and more popular, even to a bigger stage. So that's why, we decided to create AUBL. I think the premise is very simple. We want to create a pan-regional platform where the best teams from all of those different Asian countries and regions could come and together and compete with each other. Sports is all about rivalries. You want to see the equivalent of Duke versus UNC, in an Asia context. So we want to create those international rivalries, by having those institutions that are already famous globally, but leverage that sort of influence that already have, and transit that into language of basketball. I think the content should be really good, and everybody that I've spoken with is very excited about the games at AUBL. So to just give you a quick summary of what AUBL is about. So we're starting with a tournament this year, and we're starting next year. The whole format will become home and away format, and so home away is what people are really excited about. But this year we're starting with a tournament, and the tournament will showcase our vision and tell people what it's about, and offer a really, a glimpse into the future.
So I read in some other interviews that you said that you would want some other schools from around the globe to participate in this league, such as Australia. I'm just very curious. Your kind of 5-year plan. Do you have any specific benchmarks that you would like to hit in order to kind of fulfill the overall goal of this league?
Yes, of course. I think there, but we have a lot of objectives we want to hit, right? In terms of a 5-year plan, we want this to be the most consequential, pan-regional sports league in Asia. Even outside of basketball. I think we have the potential because we do have the best teams, in the college space to participate in our league, and we're starting with the teams from Northeast Asia region because that's where the basketball infrastructure, the economy is the most ready for anything like we're building. But I think we've received an enormous amount of interest from Southeast Asia as well, from Middle East, from Australia. So we're constantly thinking about, okay, how can we expand our horizon and by being more inclusive, by having more teams to participate in our leagues. So to put it in a simple way to describe our plan for the next 5 years. So we will start the league is a Champions League, but we will start more like a conference in NCAA, regardless of Pac-12 or Ivy League. We'll start more like a conference, but then we'll gradually start to build more conferences as we develop. Eventually, you'll be a multi-conference, regular season game plus a championship stage where all the best teams from each conference come compete together. I don't know if that makes sense, but but we have to start somewhere by building a more controlled and in a relatively smaller geographic region, and to build the best case study, and then we can replicate that case studies and know-how into building more conferences.
No, that makes complete sense. And tournaments are the easiest way. It's the easiest form of competition to understand. And like you were saying, it creates rivalries fairly easily. And I think that's a phenomenal format. I want to ask you, how important is it for Joe Tsai and his family office of Blue Pool Capital to be involved in this as well, just to have his support? And can you kind of elaborate how that relationship formulated in terms of helping this league?
Yes, definitely. Joe Tsai has been a good friend and mentor for me for for the almost past 7, 8 years. I met him together with Yao Ming when I was working with Yao, and we had the idea to start a scholarship to encourage students from China to go study and compete in the U.S. through basketball. So that's when it all started. Our friendship started there, and ever since he's been a very trusted mentor and friend, and he's very supportive of my vision and the stuff that I want to do in basketball. And the AUBL is, I think, the latest example. I think you probably know, he, of course, in the US he's known as the owner of Brooklyn Nets, the owner of New York Liberty, and even he's relatively new to own sports ownership, and he's owned the teams in the past less than 10 years. But I think he's made a lot of moves, and won the championship last year with the Liberty, and he's also one of very few Asian owners in the pro sports scene in the States. So and his expertise of how sports business works, how business works, is able to really help us a lot. In addition to the investments he put in to help the league get started, right? So I think Joe Tsai, is more famous in China because he is the co-founder and chairman of Alibaba Group. Alibaba is basically the most important. It's got the equivalent of Amazon. It's so famous in China, and one of the biggest internet companies. So it's good that he could we could use his name to promote the league as well. It's good to have him as someone who's a firm supporter of the vision. So that really helps us a lot. And he himself is a student athlete growing up, playing for Lawrenceville and playing for Yale. So he loves college sports a lot, regardless of basketball or football or lacrosse. So I think he's personally really good at lacrosse, and he plays a lot of basketball too. So it's good to have him for sure.
Can you discuss the basketball culture within Asia? We always like to delve into just how the game is all over the world. And, as myself living in America, and I think as my colleagues and my hosts and the journalists that we have interviewed, we kind of get stuck in just approaching the game from just a nationalistic view of just from the United States and not thinking of it as a global game. So can you kind of discuss kind of the culture of just basketball itself? I'm just going to long-winded question, but not only just in China, but in Asia as a whole, and just your opinion, just in terms of popularity, just in terms of just how much it is part of just the culture in terms of just basketball courts, people just wanting just to get some shots up and just playing in leagues and just all the way to the professional ranks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, basketball is highly regarded as most probably the number two most popular team sport in the world, only after football. I think football is is a European product. You know, it's kind of a religion in the US. Everywhere in the world. Every talking about FIFA World Cup and everything, right? And the culture that is so viral and so big but it's all inspired by European culture, right? I mean, basketball, in my view, is an American product. Is an American product, and it's a combination of a very fun sport, and music and fashion, and it's all about things. I think it's the best example of pop culture. Basketball is the best form of pop culture. So I think in Asia, basketball was that people were spotted playing basketball like almost 100 years, a century ago, right? So I think basketball made its way into Asia very early on, shortly after it was invented by Dr. Naismith. So basketball does have a very long history in Asia, and that helps with the sport to be uh, something that is every day and people follow on a very daily basis, right? So I think, in my view, basketball is more popular in the U.S. Basketball has to compete with baseball, American football, for example. But in the U.S., especially from where I'm from, I think basketball is number one. It's number one team sport that people love. Regarding how big a component it plays in young people's pop culture, and how accessible the courts are. I don't remember the exact stats, but China has probably the world's most basketball courts. Period. You can easily find. You cannot find a baseball field that often, but basketball courts it's literally around every corner. And you can find it in the mountain, you can find it in the caves. There are some shockingly beautiful photos you can find online where basketball courts are built on some of the weirdest locations across Asia. So that I think that's a good example to showcase how popular basketball is, and especially among the young people. I think NBA did a fantastic job, attracting generations of fans. I think starting in the 80s probably, and then the generations of NBA stars had inspired generations of Asian youth to fall in love with sports, to start playing the sports, and to aspire to be playing at a higher level, to be a pro player or whatever. But I would say, I don't know, Justin, have you made your way to Asia yet? But it's basketball culture is something that is that plays such a major role in young people's pop culture, and that's why we want to take advantage of it, and we're proud of being part of the ecosystem. But it is like you've probably seen videos and footage of when every time an NBA star travels to Asia, they got mobbed in a mobbed, quote unquote, air quote, by people, thousands of people showing up just trying to cheer for their heroes. Steph Curry was in China last year, and he literally, whenever he went, he paralyzed the whole city's traffic. Where everybody wanted to see him, and Kobe, and LeBron, they all had the similar. Whenever they came, they have the same. It has caused similar amount of buzz, and people are just so excited to see them.
Yeah, no, I have seen those clips, all starting out with Kobe and then with the current NBA stars. Yeah, it just seems like the NBA has been such a phenomenon in Asia. They've really taken advantage of that market. Do you kind of see anything in the future in terms of tightening that bond by any chance? The NBA's talked about expansion. Do you see the NBA maybe wanting to delve into maybe formulating a league within Asia? Have you heard anything in terms of maybe that being a possibility within the next 10 to 20 years or so as maybe a possibility just in terms of, you mentioned all these NBA stars are super popular. They game super popular. I mean, the NBA has a league within Africa already. So I'm very curious if you think the success might be replicated within Asia for the NBA in the near future.
Yeah, Justin, thank you. Thank you for asking this question. This is actually a very good question that I think about in my head every day. Because in my theory, right, NBA is, undoubtedly the most popular and also the highest competition, the best competition in the world, period, right? But and the teams are all in North America, right? And then the teams are all in North America. Of course, you can see it everywhere now. You can see it on your PC. You can see it on linear cable. You can see it on mobile as you go. You constantly see a flood of NBA short video content on all platforms, regardless it's TikTok or IG. But you still have to be physically uh, there to experience the whole magic. I think that comes full circle, right? But only a very tiny fraction of people from this part of the world is able to afford that type of experience, right? I think there are millions of basketball fans here. I would say only a tiny bit of it, in their lifetime is able to make it to an actual NBA game in the state in North America. So that leaves a big opportunity for local leagues to thrive and to kind of create a similar experience. Of course, the competition will never be as good as the NBA. It will be never as good. But I definitely see the future of and where there's the NBA in the States, but with more satellite projects everywhere, in the world, regardless if it's Africa or Asia or Europe, right? Because again, I think you have to be physically present in the arena to experience the sport, and then you stay hooked. Otherwise, there's just too much content every day that could be consumed. If you cannot build that in-person connection with the game, you probably get distracted by other stuff, right? So I think regardless of it's NBA's objective or my objective, I think that there's an opportunity to build locally relevant products because the live experience cannot be replaced by anything else. So I think everybody's goal is towards the same direction, that you need to have. The NBA will expand to more cities like Vegas, I know Seattle are being talked about, but you know, it's important to start also local leagues in different parts of the world. I think the BAL is a good example. I think the BAL is a very good platform to develop future NBA talent because there's just so much offering in Africa when it comes to raw talent, and they need to be they need to have better exposure, and then they have the opportunity to the path to even move to the bigger stage. In Europe, a similar thing. I think NBA is contemplating a league with FIBA because the talent pool is so deep. The problem is so deep, and I think NBA sees the potential to kind of turn a switch and to building a league there that has NBA's expertise on it. In Asia, I think I'm a very close as a former NBA alum, and also I stay very close with NBA managing people. I think they're also analyzing and studying the trend and what's happening. But I think for me, I'm just so happy that we're starting a college league in Asia. In a way, it will be you can serve as a development league for pro leagues, no matter if the local pro leagues or like pro leagues in Europe or in the NBA. So that's why I told the ESPN last time that our league will be eventually be something that NBA scouts don't want to miss out on. They want to come and see the play of the league and potentially discover good players that are good enough to play regardless in NCAA or NBA one day. So
Final question for you. we delve in everything within basketball culture. Doing some research on yourself, you are the executive producer of Left-Hand Layup, a popular anime series about basketball. Can you kind of go over that? Because I've seen some other animated anime as well, covering the sport, and that's something that didn't pop in my mind just in terms of a connection between anime and basketball, but it seems like it's a great fusion together. So can you discuss this? And it seems to be very popular in the States. You can watch it on Crunchyroll. Can you kind of discuss your involvement?
Yes, definitely. So I grew up loving two things, right? Basketball and anime. And I was fortunate enough to enter a career of basketball. I started at the NBA League office right after college as a management trainee, and then I was really fortunate enough to work with Yao as his chief of staff and also head of marketing and strategy for the Chinese Basketball Association League. So those two are all was dream came true to me for me, right? And then I was like, okay, what else? What are the other dreams that I had as a child, right? So I grew up watching Japanese basketball animes. One was called Slam Dunk. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but it was one of the biggest cultural sensation in Asia. Everybody, regardless of boys or girls, a lot of them, started playing basketball. You know, because Michael Jordan, Yao Ming, Kobe, Allen Iverson, or Slam Dunk. So that was phenomenal. That was phenomenal. And I always thought about, hey, slam dunk was created 30, 40 years ago. It needs to be I think there's a need for updated product content for similar to capture the similar kind of need. I think anime is just such a great media to promote the game. Cartoon animation, because the kids love it. The kids love it, and if you can use this media to medium to promote a sport you love, that's awesome, right? So that's when the idea of creating left-hand layup uh, came to my mind. I mean, that was early 2020. It was in the early days of COVID. It was right before COVID where I had the idea. I decided to build a team, and as you know, I think in the early months of COVID, we were less impacted by COVID because it's all we need is a group of people who are committed and who share the vision and who have the talent, animation talent to sit in a room and produce, right? So so far it's been the show was the first season was premiered in 2023 and our second season premiered earlier this year and it is now all available on Crunchyroll. We've received very good reviews globally, because of as you said, you probably could find a anime about magic or about science fiction. You can find many different titles in each of the genres. But when it comes to basketball anime, there are only a few that you can think of. And I don't even remember when was the last one that was created. So at least it has been 10 years or something. So I think, for every generation of kids, I think deserve their own basketball anime. That's kind of my theory. So I'm just very happy that we created left-hand layup for this generation of kids, and I think they're loving it. And so I just I'm about basketball. I've committed my whole career to basketball, but it could take different many forms, right? Building a league could be one of it. Working for Yao could be one of it. Working with Tsai could be one of it. Creating any basketball anime is also another piece of the puzzle. Doing all of that stuff make me feel very satisfied and complete with what I do. It gives me energy to go into office to go on every travel, and basketball. The anime actually covers the younger demographic. The league, covers youth and teenager and college students. So I think we're just trying to. I'm trying to do everything or different things to cover different spectrum of the basketball audience here.
Now, that's amazing. Jay, thank you very much for the time. Truly appreciate it. Can you let our audience know if you're on social media, any upcoming projects, and again, where they can catch just the league and just any other news you want our audience to be aware of?
No, Justin, thank you for having me today, and it's such a pleasure to to have this conversation with you. And you're asking amazing questions, and love to get to know your audience a little bit more, and maybe come back in the future once we launch our league. But we are just getting started, and we're actually rolling out our social medias on every major platforms. But we don't have that much content to offer yet because our league, our first edition is this August. So as we're getting closer to the dates, I think we will be uh, posting more stuff to get people excited. Please stay tuned and for our August event. If you can make it to China, Hangzhou in August, you're definitely invited to see it live. And but if you can make it, we'll make sure we have amazing content for you to understand. Okay, well, what Asia college basketball looks like very soon in about 2 months of time. But after that would be constantly building very good content all year round, especially entering our home and away season starting next year. So I think there are a lot of leagues that are our role models. At the end of the day, we're a startup, right? So I think regardless if it's OTE or our rival leagues, I think they're all already big brothers, big sisters, in in our industry. So we want to also learn from them. We don't only want to learn from the NBA, from the NCAA. We also want to learn from like newer leagues like OTE and Unrival, when it comes to game production, when it comes to media strategy, when it comes to social media. So I think there are a lot of good teachers out there that we want to learn, and we want to potentially work with them. I know the founder of OTE as well, and we've taught, he shared with me some good advice along the past couple of years. So yeah, we're very grateful to have sports is such a close community, and everybody is excited about more content offering, emerging leagues. We're happy to be one of it from this part of the world, but we do have the ambition to build a global property. So we just can't wait to let everybody know about the stories and see the contents.
Yeah, that'd be incredible. Jay, thank you very much for the time. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.